Today, politics and tech. We start with a complicated nexus of slow-moving judicial systems and the flood the zone with crap former president. Together, we declassify some stuff. Then Google was the darling of Danish public schools until it wasn't. And German efforts to control hate speech are on one hand a hard line to draw, and on the other hand, an even more dangerous line to cross, as it turns out. I am Steven Rosenbaum, and this is Future Forward, along with my podcast partner in crime, Bob Garfield. Hey, Bob, important question. Have you switched from regular coffee to pumpkin spice latte?
No, I have not, nor will I. I hold no animus to the cult of pumpkin spice. I actually kind of like pumpkin spice ice cream when I have ice cream, but I don't surrender my October to pumpkins like some Americans do.
Yeah, it gets earlier and earlier. It's now September, and all of the street delis now have pumpkins out, which I think is just, there should be some kind of a law.
Yeah, it's like a global pumpdemic.
It is. Yeah, I am not a pumpkin spice latte drinker, but I did have hot coffee this morning. All right, let's get into the. I just want to start with the word.
Hold on. Not pumpkin. I'm going to remember not pumpkin. I'm sorry. Let's go.
Yeah, that's okay. I've got my here. I am. Ice cold coffee. Ugh. Okay. Anyway, I wanted to start with this phrase "special master" because I find it delightfully mysterious. Like, special agent, special master. Are there non-special masters or not? Are there just regular FBI agents, or how do you get to be a special master?
Oh, you're an FBI agent? Excuse me. I'm a special agent. Well, that's a really good question. I mean, master is nice all by itself, but I think special master it means that you have been specially appointed on an ad hoc basis for one case to unleash your mastery.
So
it does have a kind of sadomasochism bondage vibe to it.
Yes, master. I was thinking, like, could we be special podcasters?
That's a great idea. Well, you be the special podcaster. I don't want to do as much work, so I'll just be the executive special podcaster.
Executive. So people forget this thing about Trump, but I think it's worth starting here, which is, first of all, he's not a lawyer and did not go to law school. So he has no idea. Like the one thing I learned early in my career is when you read a legal document as a non-lawyer and you think you understand it because it has words and periods, you have no idea what it means because law school imbues those words with totally different non-literal meaning.
Yeah.
So he has, and he also, it's, presumably these judges that he's dealing with have long enough memories that they remember that he has been viciously disrespectful to judges. Like, you remember the judge that he called a Mexican?
Yeah, sure.
Who wasn't a Mexican. So
not that there's anything wrong with that.
No. But he just makes
But
these.
Yes, yeah. For which he suffered the penalty of being elected president of the United States.
Yeah, fair. So the special master thing, someone whispered in his ear and said, "Look, here's a way to stall everything, and we'll go get us one of these slow-moving legal bureaucrats, and that'll buy you through the midterms." Turns out, special master might not be taking the bait.
Oh, dearie. No, he is not. He's saying, first of all, he's asking questions that the other judge, Eileen Cannon of Florida, neglected to ask. Yeah, like, are you actually accusing the government of planting evidence? Which evidence have they planted? Which did they take away that you have an argument with? So he's no longer letting him go on social media to say one thing while his lawyers keep mum in their filing. So that's pretty great. The other thing is he's put deadlines on this. I think October 21st for him to to give a list of all of the materials he deemed to be subject to executive privilege or lawyer-client privilege. He said, yep, October 21st. And I think they were thinking, December, January 2024, they thought they could just run out the clock. But he's like, nope, this is doable. October 21st, see you in court.
And keep in mind, these lawyers who are being worked really hard are also not getting paid and are likely to never get paid if history tells us anything.
If history tells us anything, that's exactly what's going to happen. They're doing it for the honor and the publicity of working for Trump. And, it's not nothing, because once you are known to be an advocate in these circles, presumably it gives you an opportunity for new business elsewhere in the right-wing sphere.
Might want to check in with Rudy on that.
Well, he's a case. No, he's not a case. He's a special case.
He's a special case.
So and they are not, on top of the fact that they're going to get stiffed by their client, and he's completely uncontrollable. They are now potentially on the hook, because if they bring any of his insane allegations to court, that the FBI planted evidence that they were actually looking for Hillary's missing emails, which is something he said on Friday on the Hannity show. I mean, it is quite clear that they are going to be held accountable if they introduce any of this stuff into the case. And Deary, the special master, is sort of tempting them, or at least daring them to do so, and they're not going to put their careers at risk. So it is, oddly enough, a special shit show.
For those of you who are listening at home and not at in an early morning hour, but midday or evening, I would recommend a drinking game for this pod, where every time we say special master, you just take a shot.
You know what else? If you want to play with a friend, have them take a shot every time they read a headline with the term legal woes in it.
Legal woes.
Well, so the weekend was thick with them.
So which brings us actually to the next. I didn't pull a clip for it, but I don't think we'll need one. The appeals court ruling, which may go down in legal history as one of the great, delightful reads of all times. 2 of the judges were Trump appointees.
Yeah.
So whatever elixir of hypnosis he's had over the judicial system seems to be now lifting, because they just essentially said to what's her name, Eileen Cannon. Or whatever. Yeah. Is it Aileen? Is it Aileen?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the pronunciation. She has a special pronunciation.
But the appeals court literally wrote the thing. Like, they all sat down around the table with a I assume a paralegal, and said, okay, we're just gonna fire this off. Are you out of your fucking mind? It was great.
I don't think it was a paralegal. I think it was a law clerk. But and they just eviscerated the woman. It was like their opinion was, I don't know if it was 15 pages or something like that. But the bottom line was, oh, really? Lawyer much?
Yeah,
it was a nonsensical opinion, both in terms of the statute and the precedent, and even standing, and including what the hell was it doing in her court to begin with. But be careful what you ask for, Trump attorneys, because you can lose by winning, and so far that's exactly what's happening.
All right, so now let's move on to part 2 of this chapter, which is the Letitia James case, which again came in the same week, making it a basket of gifts. But and I have a kind of a sidebar question, so when the announcement came out, I'm a fan, as you know, of Eric Trump. I read him and retweet him often, and so I was reading.
Who don't?
Yeah. So I was reading him, and he put up on his Twitter feed a quote from the Wall Street Journal, and I read it and I was like, wow. And it said it was quoted the Wall Street Journal, and it was on black with white text, and it said, Letitia James is more evidence of the unraveling of the rule of law. And I read it and I was like, really? Like, I don't know. I kind of thought she had some evidence, which was why she filed the case. And then I looked at it again and I'm like, this seems like not from the Journal. So I went on the Wall Street Journal site and I looked at their opinion page, and there was no such opinion. And I thought, so is he just making up? Someone on his team, he doesn't write these things. Is he just making up things and referencing the Journal? Because that he'd probably get caught on. Turns out it's better than that. It is actually a quote from the Wall Street Journal opinion page from January 4th. Before there was a case or evidence or a filing.
Yeah.
So I was trying to figure out, in this new internet world we live in, is that misinformation? No, it's accurate. It's misleading. It has no context. But how do you I was trying to figure out how you call him out on that. Oh, it would be like me reading you a weather report without reference, but it was from January.
Yeah, it is the stock and trade of opposition researchers going back, decades, and that is telling big lies with nominal truths. It's the same kind of logic which permits you to look at some line of, in an omnibus transportation bill that includes or suggests a policy that you think your base will object to, and then you put a picture of the opposing candidate in dark, looking particularly demonic, and say voted to go easy on pedophiles, right? And it's true that the person voted for the omnibus bill. It's not true that the particular provision in the law in any way was going easy on pedophiles, but it may have, changed some part of the statute. And certainly out of context and out of proportion. Yeah. But nonetheless, you could say, here's the bill, here's the line, and you can say, therefore it's true. Well, no, you can lie with facts, and that's what they do. There's just, it's the magosphere. The truth has no real meaning to them. Only winning, only owning the libs matters by any means necessary. And it often includes just total, fabulism. Plus, you have to factor in, and this could come up in a later part of the conversation. You have to factor in that Eric Trump is what's the word? What's the German word for penis? It's going to come up later in our conversation. Anyway, the man is a dick, is what I'm getting at.
So did you, so the Letitia James filing and the charges and the fact that the whole family has now been named in a suit, what was your immediate reaction at the press conference, when you saw the press conference or the coverage that followed?
I had two immediate reactions. The first was glee, because of the potential, at least, for them to suffer the only kind of ongoing harm that matters to them. Reputation, obviously, is not on that list, but money. The Trump organization is their meal ticket, and it is under some threat right now. So there's that. So that is a cause for delight, because that is just an ongoing. It seems to me, based on everything that I've read about for the last number of years, 8, let's say, that it's an ongoing criminal organization, and fraud is its business model. So that's just high fives all around. But we started hearing about this notion of inflating your assets for the banks and minimizing your assets or your revenue for the tax man. We started hearing about it when Michael Cohen testified before Congress. Actually, a few days before that, there was a story, a big investigative piece in the New York Times, which talked about that possibility. And what simultaneously bothered me as I was, opening champagne on Thursday or whenever it was a Tuesday, was that that case doesn't seem to have much advanced over the 3 years when we first heard about it. There was no breathtaking development. There didn't seem to be a lot of smoking guns. They cited some sort of staggering examples, but I just don't know how far she has gotten in the 3 years since this first materialized, and that makes me nervous that it's all going to come to nothing.
So I've been tracking it, and it's worth remembering that they went after the accounting firm, and there was about a year of the accounting firm hemming and saying, no, we're not, probably attorney-client or whatever, we're not going to deliver it. And then the accounting firm fired Trump, and that was a story. And they said, we can't, there's a weird thing with accounting firms, particularly unaudited financials, which is, they sent us this stuff and we are not responsible for it because we didn't actually check it.
Right.
Then they kind of backed off of that and said, no, we actually can't, support these. And so that was a year and a half ago. Then they went after the accounting firm for the actual records, and the accounting firm Mazars or whatever pushed back on that. Then they went after his CFO, who made some, I thought, very strange settlement with the government where he pled guilty, but said he wouldn't testify against any of the Trump people, including Donald, which made no sense to me. Like, I don't understand how these criminals have leverage. Like, well, I'll only give you this much. Why not just go to prison? Like, anyway, but this, I think,
he's gonna, and now he's also included in this civil suit as a co-conspirator in the fraud against the people of New York State. So there's at any point he may just give up and say, fuck it. I am no longer going to be a whipping boy I'm no longer going to be a sacrificial lamb for this guy. He's just going to turn on me anyway, so I may as well get it over with. Maybe. Or there's another possibility. And that is that Trump, isn't guilty of the frauds of which he's been accused. And we cannot entirely discount that. It is possible that he stayed on the right side of the law throughout all of this, or at least stayed beyond detection.
I'm pushing back on that, because on Hannity, he essentially confessed on Hannity. On Hannity, he said, these big banks have really smart people on their staffs, and it's their job to review what I send them and determine if it's accurate or not. And that's just not true. Like when you deliver, what he said was, we told one person one number and one another, but it's their job to figure that out. And that's just that's breaking the law. That's like saying we went into a bank and we handed a note to the teller and said, give us the money, we have a bomb. And the teller handed us the money. It's their fault for not patting me down at the door to see if I actually had a real bomb on me or not. It's just not how the law, I'm, again, not a lawyer.
I understand. And I should just add that his other genius son, Don Jr., said, tweet that we didn't inflate our assets. We undervalued them. Which is admitting to half of the charges levied against them, that they undervalued their revenues for
taxes,
the
to not pay
taxing
taxes.
authority. So that was a couple of confessions, but
the Hannity interview, for those of you who are not regular Hannity viewers, which I am not, it's pretty delightful. It
was Captain Queeg, man.
Yeah.
It was Captain Queeg. The strawberries. That's where I had them. I proved with geometric logic that the FBI planted Hillary's emails in Mar-a-Lago. He had everything but the little steel balls in his hand. It was astonishing to watch him melt down on live TV. Not astonishing, but entertaining.
All right. Let's move on to well, let's do Germany first, and then we'll do the Danish schools if we have time. So this is an article from the New York Times about how Germany is managing and prosecuting hate speech, and I have to say, I didn't know any of this. This was all new information to me.
They've always prosecuted it IRL, but now they are doing it online, much like, I don't know, Iran and Russia and China and North Korea monitor online activity. They're doing that specifically for hate speech and insult. So that's the development that we saw in the New York Times story.
So, I mean, other than the fact that it's happening on the planet, I think this is a cautionary tale, because there's all of this, I don't know, pressure is the right word. There's growing bipartisan support of some kind of changes in legislation around, what can be published on the web and who's responsible for it, and Section 230 and all that stuff that has the potential to be the only bipartisan agreement on changes in, quote, big tech. So as I read this, I thought, isn't this kind of what we're signing up for? Like the police knocking on your door and saying, I'm sorry, you've published something objectionable, and we're, and here, let me just read the first paragraph from the Times, because it sets up like where we are. All right, here we go. So when the police pounded on the door before dawn in the home of Northwest Germany, a bleary-eyed young man in his boxer shorts answered. The officers asked for his father, who was at work. They told him his 51-year-old father was accused of violating laws against online hate speech, insults, and misinformation. He had shared an image on Facebook with an inflammatory statement about immigration falsely attributed to a German politician. Quote, just because someone rapes or robs or is a serious criminal is not the reason for deportation, the fake remark said. The police then scoured the home for 30 minutes, seized the laptop and a tablet as evidence, prosecutors say. If that kind of prosecution were to come to the U.S., wouldn't we need like a phalanx of speech, like police, to be able to go and knock on all those doors?
Yeah, you would need to create an online security state of the sort that we do not have, that we depend on the platforms to build and monitor. That's one thing. We'd also have to have a whole different set of laws, most of which would violate the First Amendment. So there would have to be some Supreme Court rulings that addressed the sudden exceptions to the First Amendment. And I've always been pretty close to a First Amendment absolutist. I'm beginning to change my mind. And this story that you're discussing is why, because they talk a lot in the piece about the relatively modest insults that have been subject to prosecution, like the guy who called a right-wing politician a penis. That's what I was getting at earlier. Yeah. And he ended up getting fined 1,000 euros for using the internet to insult. But there is a different question of online harm by speech. And that's like a Gamergate, and the 15 years since, when the online world has been used to harass mainly women, but not exclusively women, threaten them, dox them, and incite people to harass them. And which, I think we do need laws to protect people against, and to punish people who use the net and social media to cause actual harm to others, and through speech. There is a very important free speech case called Brandenburg, which has held that you have to not only have the wherewithal when you make a threat to follow it up, there has to be a near and present danger to the target of your speech. It has to be, what's the word for about to happen? Imminent risk of harm. And that excludes almost everything in the free speech realm. But it doesn't, in the online world, Brandenburg, that standard is met every day because of doxing and death threats and the harassment that is meted on people by the mob. And our laws do not address that. Now, we didn't have a Holocaust, which is why Germany's laws are so stringent. It began with laws against Holocaust denial and neo-Nazism, but now they're facing a very real problem of people's lives being destroyed, Alex Jones-like, by online speech. So I believe that something needs to be done. And if it means criminalizing certain forms of it, I am coming around, absolutist or not, to the thought that we need to protect people with the law.
I need to think deeply about this before I respond to what I think is. I guess I can't imagine how you could. I mean, this gets back to the Eric Trump post from earlier. So, like, would that cross the line into being misinformation? It's certainly misleading, and it was purposefully misleading. But I mean, would the police knock on Eric Trump's social media manager's door and say, "Listen, you posted this quote, this Wall Street Journal article totally out of context, and therefore we're taking you away in handcuffs," which, by the way, would be a lovely photo op. But that I think if we played that out, I think if we took an hour and played out, okay, let's make 30 things and decide how the law should manage it, you'd find that the problem is it's just unworkable. And
there's a slippery slope problem as well. Certainly, I think the Eric Trump thing, to criminalize something like that would be insane because, for one thing, I would be in jail and I would stay there for a long time. Not only have I done it, I have done it many times. But getting back to the Brandenburg thing, I think Brandenburg's decision needs to be reimagined, and it certainly won't happen with this Supreme Court, to understand the real harm, the real imminent harm placed by certain online attacks, truthful or otherwise. And if you give people's contact information, their physical addresses, their online addresses, knowing full well that the mob will be unleashed on them and devastating to them, there has to be a penalty for that. Can it only be civil, like the Alex Jones case? Maybe. But, if you're acting with malice aforethought to harm people, I think that should be a statutory crime.
All right. Well, let's go. Let's just take a brief visit to our friends in Denmark, because I did think this is a story in Wired.
Google Mark.
What? Yeah, Google Mark.
Mark.
Yes, yeah. So again, knew nothing about this. Did not. I mean, I know that Google has an education initiative, and I know that Chromebooks are part of it. But so the headline from Wired is: a Danish city built Google into its schools and then banned it. Which, they had me at the headline. I'm like, okay, and I happen to know of schools in which, Chromebooks are handed out to students every day. I guess so. The subhead is: an 8-year-old's YouTube snafu and one unlikely parent activist sparked a nationwide debate on the tech giant's ubiquity and handling of children's data. First of all, did any of this surprise you?
I was surprised that it was happening in Denmark and not Ohio. But where local parents, activists are getting books banned, for crying out loud. I had two reactions as sort of ambivalence. On the one hand, this one parent who was sort of anti-tech and did a bit of a Luddite, objected to the exposure that his kid had online by having been issued not just a Chromebook, but a YouTube account by the school, which he did not authorize, and which the parents did not authorize. And he wigged out. And the consequence of the case is that it shut down this program and threatens to shut it down nationwide. And I thought, oh man, one gadfly parent, on some wild ass theory that his child was being put at risk by the school system, God, shut the fuck up. But then talking to you, I had a moment of clarity when you said, yeah, a giant corporation has, insinuated itself into the school system for an entire country and is calling the shots. And
what did the parent say? He said, we're proudly analog.
Proudly analog, which, kind of suggests that he might be a penis. But maybe not, maybe he, bless their hearts. And if at a minimum, they should have been given the opportunity to opt out and accommodations made for the kid to keep up in school while the rest of the kids, tapped on their Chromebooks. Absolutely. Yeah, because the kid's privacy was taken away without due process by the school, right? It's a legitimate beef.
Well, all right, so let's unpack that just for a second. So that's like saying I'm opposed to books and pencils and paper. Those things, I have a personal. I'm a Luddite in the fact that I believe children should only learn orally and should only respond orally.
Right.
So I want my child to have an accommodation in school so he doesn't have to either read or carry books or paper or pencil. You know what? No. What about no?
Yeah, what about no? But the difference is, and I can argue both sides of this question for a long time until your eyes glaze over. But the difference here is the possible harm. The kid was put online, which the parents didn't want, where parents didn't want him to be, but more to the point, did not know he was. So they're sitting around using pencils and or using platonic dialogue instead of any technology, and their kid has a YouTube account, and his data was therefore available to Google, and as a parent, I can see why that is a real potential harm, or maybe a harm in and of itself. So I don't think your hyperbolic example really applies.
So by the way, just sidebar, but I don't know if you know this or not. If you get locked out of your Gmail account, presuming you have one, which I think everyone on the planet now does, and you need to have Google send you a message to prove you're you, they send the message to your YouTube app.
Yeah.
And if you don't happen to have a YouTube app on your device, well, you can just download it.
Just download it. Isn't that convenient for you?
I find that wildly, like it, every time I have to do that, I'm like of all the ways, what about just texting me a number with that whole dance we now do? Anyway, we are out of time. The Chromebook debate will have to be resolved another day. The Germany versus the US conversation is ongoing, and the slow turning of the judiciary broadly against Donald Trump because he's hates judges and the law. We'll have yet another fantastic chapter next week. And as a sidebar, stay tuned for the Ginny Thomas January 6th interview, which is also promises to be just full of delightful, that I would get popcorn for that one. I think that's going to be fantastic.
This is, I don't know about Oktoberfest and pumpkin spice coffee, but this is going to be a Schadenfreude month, to beat the band.
Indeed it is. See you next week. Bye, Bob.
See you, Steve.